Good morning and welcome to the Weather Gurus channel. I'm your host, Tony. Thank you for joining me on this August 23rd, 2020 Sunday edition. We want to get right into it first with Tropical Storm Marco. Tropical Storm Marco, current as of the 10 a.m. Central Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Time advisory, 70 miles an hour winds just under hurricane strength. Pressure's holding steady at 993 millibars. That's a 1 millibar drop from last night's advisory. And it's moving north-northwest at 14 miles per hour, very fast clip now as it's influenced by that trough, and it's going to continue on that motion around the western periphery of the Bermuda High. So with Tropical Storm Marco, we'll start with this first and then we'll get to Laura. Marco will become a hurricane, a minimal hurricane, later on today in the either the 2 p.m. or the 5 p.m. advisory by the Hurricane Center. And it's starting to exhibit deep convection, but not as much deep convection as Tropical Storm Laura. And so therefore, Marco will be a minimal hurricane or borderline tropical storm heading into the Gulf Coast. It would be somewhere around Houma, Louisiana, where it makes landfall, and then heading into, just to the west of New Orleans and passing inland, turning into quickly weakening into a depression and a tropical depression. Tropical storm force winds are mostly located on the eastern side of this system, and they extend out some 70 miles from the center. So it's a very compact storm compared to most storms that we're used to forming here in the Gulf. And that rapid intensification that we were expecting, I do not think that's going to happen. This is not going to evaporate into a Category 3 or Category 4 rapid intensification storm, despite the warm water underneath it, because it's dealing with a heavy southwesterly vertical wind shear. And it's just not, the system's organization is just not as strong and tight as it could be for that to take advantage of the warm waters in the Gulf Coast. Now, Tropical Storm Laura, on the other hand, has a much better chance of exploding in the Gulf once it gets past all the land of Cuba and Hispaniola. Just to take a quick look at Marco on the satellite here, you can see that most of the convection is bubbling up on the eastern side. The center is actually here. The center of circulation is actually here. And you can see the cloud tops are being sheared off and sheared away. So it's struggling to get its act together, but it may get hurricane strength today. That's what they were saying. And so I'm agree with the Hurricane Center and say that, yeah, probably will get hurricane strength, 75 miles an hour, 70 mile an hour tropical storm. I mean, it's not much difference between that. But remember now, the tropical storm force winds only extend out 70 miles from the center, and that's mostly located on the eastern two-thirds of the system. And so not everyone is going to see that. If it comes in the way this way, then that means Houston, you won't see tropical storm force winds at all. Lake Charles, you won't see tropical storm force winds at all. It'll be mainly Alexandria, from Alexandria and that I-10 corridor all the way into New Orleans. And the coastline, of course, the immediate coastline of Louisiana and the bayou, that will see those tropical storm force winds anywhere from 39 to 70 miles an hour. So, and that's for a short time, because the thing is moving. Once it gets inland, it's going to slow down, but it is moving. It is not stalling out. It is moving still. So that's the good news. And the good news is it's a borderline tropical storm Category 1 hurricane. And so as long as the levees and everything is prepared to receive the rainfall, we should be fine. And the rainfall totals maximum for this storm of this size, as you can see the convection, we're talking about maybe 5 to 7 inches maximum out of this thing. It could be less, depending on, because you guys are going to be, when it approaches like that, see, you'll be on the western side, and this is the drier side of the storm, and so most of the rain be thrown back toward Biloxi, Mississippi, and Alabama, and, New Orleans proper. Some of the Thibodeau and things of that parish, just on the eastern side of New Orleans, will get some. So, that is the update on Marco. Now, let's go to Tropical Storm Laura here. If I could just switch gears here. Tropical Storm Laura. Okay, Laura has been very interesting because there's been some very deep convection. And you see this banding features here, these outflow patterns of Laura as it goes over the island of Hispaniola and the tall mountains of Hispaniola. I'm surprised it hasn't strengthened much, but one thing to note here, the Hurricane Center has placed the center of circulation further south on this thing, and so that means that the center of circulation was able to avoid some of the tallest mountains of this Hispaniola, and now it's getting ready to emerge off of the Haitian coastline, and it's heading towards Cuba next, eastern Cuba, and the Cuba province here. You can see it's looking very healthy right now. And the winds are only at maximum sustained winds are only sustained at 50 miles an hour for Tropical Storm Laura. But this is one here is going to be one of the main ones that could get into a hurricane and could go into a Category 3 hurricane in the Gulf Coast here. Let's get the latest on it. 1,004 millibars is the pressure. and its winds are at 50 miles an hour. That's come up from 45 miles an hour earlier this morning at the 8 a.m. advisory, and it's moving west-northwest at 21 miles an hour. This thing is really moving along pretty fast. And so let me get the latest, I can see the latest cone on that, which hasn't changed that much. Louisiana is still in the cone, and parts of East Texas is still in the cone, and this thing is still forecast to come in as a hurricane sometime Wednesday afternoon into Wednesday evening. So that is the latest forecast around the Lake Charles area, probably. But there's still a lot of land to go. Once it emerges off of Cuba and it gets into the Gulf of Mexico, that's when we're going to see this rapid intensification that the Hurricane Center has been talking about and that many of the models have been showing. And so it is possible for Laura to get to maybe a Category 2 hurricane, and that's what we're forecasting here for the Hurricane Center, maybe 100 miles an hour sustained winds, somewhere around there, 105, 100 miles an hour. But that may change depending on what comes off of it in Cuba. Right now, the tropical storm force winds extend out 140 miles from the center, and so that's pretty healthy. And the inflow and outflow looks very healthy despite the mountainous terrain it's going over. So that's a ominous sign too as well. This reminds me a lot of Hurricane Matthew. If you remember Hurricane Matthew a few years that went over the same area, but it curved north toward Florida, parallel Florida's coast. The same thing happened. Like people thought it would weaken when it went over the Hispaniola and Cuba, and it didn't really weaken. So this may be a Matthew, a la Matthew-like scenario, but further west out into the Gulf of Mexico here. And so yes, Tropical Storm Laura, I do think it has a better chance of becoming a hurricane, a strong hurricane than Marco would. So this will be the one that you look for rapid intensification. Now, one thing to keep in mind though is that there's a phenomenon called upwelling, and that could have a bearing on it because Marco went over some of these same waters here. But the thing is, all the water is like a bathtub here, so it really wouldn't matter because the water temperature here is 88 degrees in the Gulf of Mexico, so upwelling is negated. But that could be a possibility, just throwing that in there. There's no Fujiwara effect going to take place. No two storms are going to hit the same area. I mean, not the same, make landfall and influence each other, but they'll spin around each other, so that's out the question too. But with this storm, you're going to expect to see a bigger blow, feel a bigger blow in terms of storm surge to the east of the center, to the right and east of the center. Storm surge is going to be huge with this storm because you could be looking at a Cat 2, borderline Cat 3, maybe winds around 110 miles an hour, 105, 110 miles an hour for right now. You could be looking at storm surge anywhere in the order of maybe 8 to 10 feet, 8 to 12 feet on that deal. And the thing is to keep in mind, though, when we say maximum sustained winds, we mean the winds at the center of the core, okay? So wherever the storm comes, the eye wall comes to land, so that's where the winds will be at there. But everyone else will be getting tropical storm winds anywhere between 39 to 70 miles an hour, okay? So that's the good thing, okay? Well, not good for those who get the center of the storm. I mean, those who, are around the storm. And the thing you have to watch out for, too, is tornadoes. Tornadoes to the east of the center in that northeast quadrant. Coming in to Louisiana. If it comes in, then I'm sure the Hurricane Center will issue tornado warnings and watches when the system makes landfall, as they have it here on Thursday morning or sometime around there. They'll issue the tornado warnings and the flash flood warnings and that kind of thing. This system, you will get more rain out of the system. It's possible that some places may get 8 to 12 inches of rain because this is a more robust system. However, it's very small too. It's very compact too. A la Hurricane Andrew. As you know, Hurricane Andrew anniversary is tomorrow, August 24th, 1992. I'll never forget that storm. I was down in South Florida. So this is something to keep in mind. An anniversary of Hurricane Harvey is also this week too. So wow, we just have a lot going on. But Louisiana, you'll be fine, but just make sure you make your preparations because power outages are very possible with this system. And also, a couple of trees get down and debris. Make sure you tie up any loose ends and debris because it will get very windy and pressure will be dropping. But conditions won't be deteriorating until probably Wednesday morning. And that's when conditions will be deteriorating in the Gulf of Mexico and the western Gulf of Mexico. So that's the update on Tropical Storm Laura and also Tropical Storm Marco. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below and I will get back to you. Have a great day.